GamePlan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our 2013 college football preview. And today, we're breaking down Conference USA. We're going to take a look at this conference top to bottom. But first, let's start on the recruiting trail to see how well these teams recruited this past offseason.
The Marshall Thundering Herd came away with the best recruiting class in Conference USA this season. You look at where they wanted to focus on. They wanted to get better defensively, and they did a heavy job of recruiting defensive backs. Michael Johnson, Tequan Lane, DeAndre Wilson, even Taj Letman. Very good football players, but the guy that stood out to me the most is Jeremy Benjamin out of Hollywood, Florida, 6'2", 230 pounds, and with his speed and athleticism, this is a guy that could see time very early on that Thundering Herd defense. Jalen Scott is an excellent matchup corner, and the UTEP Miners definitely got better in their secondary by nabbing the cornerback out of Texas. In my opinion, Chad Davis is an excellent cornerback, and North Texas already has a very good defense, and I think they got a lot better by bringing in Davis, who's 5'10", 172 pounds. Similar skill sets to Jalen Scott. I got it as an excellent matchup corner. You want to talk about the quintessential ECU linebacker. You look at DeVaris Brunson, 6'1", 210 pounds, tremendous speed and athleticism. Another guy that fits right in that 3-4 front. Southern Miss is trying to get back to when they were known as the Baltimore Ravens of college football, with a very dominating defense, and starting up front with defensive tackle Rod Creighton is an excellent place to begin. Willie Smith is coming out of an excellent high school football program at Manatee High School and should fit perfectly in that secondary for the Golden Panthers. I'm a big fan of Austin Robinson and the way he can throw the football, 6'4", 200 pounds. And remember, Eric Sauza can't play forever, so you have to start prepping for the future, and this is a great place to start. When you look at the Tulsa Golden Hurricane grabbing another talented and versatile athletic offensive lineman in Rob Boyd, 6'4", 305, he may also push for time very early as a freshman. Tulane brought in Joe Montana's son, Nick Montana, from the JUCO ranks. Here's a guy that's going to start for the Green Wave and should put up some outstanding numbers, as he has excellent receiving options to throw the football to. The Rice Owls got themselves a pretty fine linebacker prospect in DJ Green, 6'2", 225 pounds. He's your classic inside linebacker, run and chase type of a guy that should do fine for that Owls defense. UAB added bulk up front with Vincent Hunter, 6'4", 325. Here's a guy that played numerous positions in high school. He played left guard, right tackle, left tackle. So he's got that versatility that you want out your offensive lineman. And La Tech also went to the JUCO ranks and got Mitchell Bell, 6'4", 330. See right here, never giving up on a play, blocked the same guy twice, and also shows the athleticism to get outside on pulls and traps. So I love this move for La Tech. Florida Atlantic has a huge hole at the quarterback position. That's why JUCO transfer Jaquez Johnson can come in and start right away. Here's a guy that brings a lot of David Garrard-like ability to the table. Love the awareness that Sean Aikens shows, a Middle Tennessee State recruit, a guy that's going to play cornerback. You see right there, dropping off, watching the quarterback's eyes, then making a play on the ball. That's what you want out that cornerback position. The Marshall Thundering Herd have the best group of quarterbacks in the conference. Rakeem Cato is one of the better QBs in the country, completing over 69% of his passes and 37 touchdowns. And Quiet has kept their backups, both Blake Fernapple and Gunnar Holcomb, are also pretty darn good. You have to give the best group of running backs to the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. You look at Trey Watts and Jatarian Douglas. They can run the heck out of the football on anyone in the country. Look for both guys to go over 1,000 yards this season. East Carolina gets my vote for the best receiving core in the conference. Justin Hart is an outstanding wide receiver, and Jabril Solomon averaged over 24 yards a catch last year. And supersized tight end Justin Jones at 6'8", 260 pounds makes it tough to match up versus East Carolina. Three seniors up front, led by guard Will Simmons, who's an NFL prospect. I have to give the nod to the Pirates for the best offensive line in Conference USA. Louisiana Tech gets my vote for having the best defensive line in Conference USA. You look at defensive end IK and M Kapale and defensive tackle Justin Ellis. They were both all-WAC performers last year, and Shaquille Lucas should also push for all Conference USA honors this season. You'd be hard-pressed to find more athletic and more productive linebackers in this conference. When you look at East Carolina's backers, Jeremy Grove and Darrell Johnson, they combined last season for over 145 tackles, 7 sacks, and 8 TFLs. Tulane Green Wave have the best secondary in Conference USA. When you look at free safety Darian Monroe and both of the cornerbacks, Lorenzo Dawson, Jordan Batiste, all three guys started as true freshmen, and all three made all conference. That says a lot about the talent that the Green Wave have in the back end of their defense. I also like the Green Wave having the best special teams in Conference USA. They are armed with the best kicker in the country in Cairo Santos, who won the Luke Rose Award last year after going a perfect 21 for 21 on his field goal attempts, including 10 for 10 from 40 to 49 yards and 2 for 2 from 50 plus. And they also have a pretty good kickoff returner and true sophomore Joshua Rounds. The offensive MVP in the conference will be, in my opinion, Kenneth Dixon out of Louisiana Tech. They lost a lot in their passing game, but they still have one of the best young running backs in the country who scored an NCAA record 28 rushing touchdowns last season. The Tulsa Golden Hurricane linebacker Sean Jackson gets my vote for defensive MVP. The 6', 250-pound playmaker is definitely going to push for All-American honors this season and is also on the radar of NFL scouts. I believe the Rookie of the Year will be quarterback Jaquez Johnson for Florida Atlantic. He's going to be able to start right away, and they have a lot of weapons at his disposal. And he put up great numbers last year for East Mississippi Community College and should do the same for the Owls. Best pro prospect in Conference USA, I'm going to give you an offensive and a defensive prospect. And you look at Ryan Grant out of Tulane, the key playmaker for that Green Wave offense, 6'2", 195 pounds. Everything that you look for in a receiver. He can run great routes and has excellent hands. On the defensive side of football, you look at Phillip Gaines out of Rice. Excellent technician. Yes, he doesn't catch a lot of interceptions, but he's always around the football. 18 pass breakups last season for the Rice Owls, and is definitely one of those guys that's not afraid to come up and lay the smack on a wide receiver. In my opinion, the toughest schedule in Conference USA this year belongs to the UTEP Miners. You look at the back end of their schedule, 5 out of the last 6 games are on the road. And we look at road games at Rice, at Texas A&M, at Middle Tennessee State. So just by the sheer road games they have in the last 6 weeks of the season gives UTEP the nod for having the toughest schedule. Let's start off in the East Division. I have the Florida Atlantic Owls finishing 7th in that division, and the reason for optimism, they have a pretty impressive group of skill players with running back Jonathan Wallace, wide receivers William Dukes and Daniel McKinney, and tight end Nexon Dorvalis. This will also be their second year in the offense, so expect better production overall. Also, you want to keep an eye on JUCO quarterback transfer Jaquez Johnson coming over from East Mississippi Junior College. And the back seven on the defensive side of football has some talent, especially at the linebacker position. Now, the cause for concern, both sides of the line of scrimmage, in my opinion, are big-time concerns. The offensive line struggled last year in pass protection, and the defensive line couldn't stop the run, and they also couldn't get to the quarterback consistently. They recruited JUCO heavy on that defensive line in efforts to bulk up front. Right now, they're very undersized, so I see this team being a year away from getting back to what we've seen from them the last couple of seasons. Next up, we have the Florida International Golden Panthers, and the reason for optimism, there is more potential in this year's FIU team than most are giving them credit for. They have a talented running back in Kedrick Rhodes and a solid quarterback in Jake Metlock. Offensively, despite losing 2 NFL draft picks and 5 other starters, I still feel like they can be much better on that side of the football, especially on the defensive line with Greg Hickman and Paul Crawford and also Giovanni Francois. Now, the cause for concern would be if, once again, quarterback Jake Metlock can't stay healthy for a full season. Also, new head coach Ryan Turner will be moving to a pro-style offense, and the biggest priority, in my opinion, will be to get better production out of that offensive line. With the uncertainty up front, plus a schedule that features Maryland, Central Florida, Louisville, it'll be tough for the Panthers this year to get to 500. Again, 5th place, I have the Southern Miss Golden Eagles, and the reason for optimism, first off, former assistant coach David Dugan returns as the new defensive coordinator, and there's some pieces in place on defense for the Golden Eagles to be drastically better this season. Defensive tackle Kyrie Thornton and defensive end Michael Smith are good players up front, with linebacker Alan Howes and Dylan Rita being solid at the second level. An outstanding cornerback play on the back end with senior Darren Wilson. Now, the cause for concern, the offense needs a lot of work, especially on the offensive line. They have to replace 4 starters. Plus, not only are they learning a new scheme, they'll be breaking in a new quarterback as well. But I honestly believe the skill positions here are undervalued as well, so they can have some success if the quarterback gets up to speed. And they have a very tough September. You look at Nebraska, Texas State, Arkansas, Boise State. That's a very tough schedule. So while I think they'll be vastly improved over last year's 0-12 season, they'll still struggle to get to bowl eligibility, in my opinion. Next up, we have the UAB Blazers, and the reason for optimism, the Blazers have one of the better running backs in the conference with Darian Reeves, who ran for over 1,000 yards last year and 13 touchdowns, and a solid group of wide receivers led by Jackie Williams. They also get back Nolan Smith, and that should help them out tremendously. Four starters also return on offense. Defensively, there's some size and athleticism in the front seven for that 3-4 defense that they're switching to. Now, the cause for concern, if the offense doesn't take that progression in year 2 of this system, then they could have some problems. Quarterback Austin Brown, if he can continue to improve and cut down on the turnovers, that is going to help out that defense as a whole, because the defense has to pick up their ability to create turnovers. That's something that they couldn't do last season. Now, I do believe the move to the 3-4 will be a beneficial one. That is a very tough defense for any offense to try to move the football against, and despite a tough September schedule, I do believe the Blazers have enough talent to flirt with 6 wins. Next up are the Middle Tennessee State Blue Raiders, and the reason for optimism, 9 starters return on a very solid offense led by quarterback Logan Kilgore, and look for Kilgore's numbers to increase as he's going to be well protected behind a veteran offensive line. Talented sophomore running back to lean on as well in Jordan Parker. Defensively, they have a true gem, in my opinion, with sophomore strong safety Kevin Byard. I also like what I see from the defensive tackle position. The cause for concern would be if defensively they struggle once again in getting off the field. And you also have to look at both the run defense and being able to put pressure on the quarterback has to improve. You're going to learn a lot about the Blue Raiders in September, and if they can make it out that schedule with a 3-2 record, they'll be hard-pressed to lose another game. This is a very good football team. Thundering Herd, and the reason for optimism, offensively, the Thundering Herd provide a matchup problem for any defense. Quarterback Rakeem Cato could push for All-American honors if he builds on his fantastic sophomore season. Tight end Gator Hoskins should help ease the loss of Aaron Dobson by being the third option, allowing other wide receivers to step up and make plays. And defensively, there are 2 studs on the defense side of the football. Linebacker Jermaine Holmes, who had 12.5 TFLs last year, and strong safety DJ Hunter, who was a freshman All-American with over 100 tackles. Now, the cause for concern, the defensive struggles is what kept Marshall from bowling last season. They gave up 43 points a game, and there's a new defensive coordinator in town, and he doesn't have to make them the #1 defense, but they can't be the country's worst. Also, wide receivers Devontae Allen and Demetrius Evans will have to step up in a big way to take some of the pressure off outstanding wide receiver Tommy Shuler. And there's a very tough road schedule for Marshall. They have to travel to Ohio, Virginia Tech, and Tulsa. But this is still a very good offense that can put up a lot of points and outscore many opponents, and they'll challenge for Conference USA's Eastern Division. Coming in first place in the East Division, I have the East Carolina Pirates, and a reason for optimism, the Pirates will be able to put points on the board once again this season. Their version of the triplets include quarterback Shane Carton, running back Ventavious Cooper, and wide receiver Justin Hardy, and they have a very talented offensive line, and they're very athletic in the front 7 on defense. As an edge rusher, Darrell Johnson should put up huge numbers this year. Now, the cause for concern, they're going to be learning from a new defensive coordinator this season in Rick Smith, and the Pirates hope to improve a secondary that ranked 107th in the country. The talent is there, but can they turn it around in 1 year? They have a tough road schedule at North Carolina State, Virginia Tech, and ODU, which is Old Dominion, is a very tough team that can put up points. They have to travel to Marshall and Middle Tennessee, so they have their work cut out for them, but they'll be up to the task, and I do believe the Pirates will win double-digit games this season. Now let's move over to the West Division and start with UT San Antonio. The reason for optimism, the Roadrunners are blessed with an experienced squad, a good recruiting base, and a winning head coach, and there's been growth each and every year. And when you look at quarterback Eric Souza, a well-balanced offensive attack, one shouldn't expect any less in 2013. 9 starters return on a defense that finished first in the WAC last year versus the run, and free safety Tristan Wade does a fine job in the back end. The Roadrunners are also very solid on special teams. Now, the cause for concern, the schedule is a lot tougher. No non-FBS schools are on this schedule, and the depth and talent of this team will be tested very early versus Oklahoma State and Arizona in the first couple of weeks. Now, the offense, while competent, has to become a little bit more explosive in every aspect, but I do believe the Roadrunners will put up an impressive showing in their first year in Conference USA, and this will be a very solid team moving forward because they have the right staff in place. Next up, we have the UTEP Miners, and the reason for optimism, new head coach Sean Kugler has two solid offensive pieces to start with in Nathan Jeffrey, the running back, and wide receiver Jordan Leslie. Defensively, there's talented linebacker Horace Miller, and I'm a big fan of A.J. Ropati, who had 58 tackles last season at the linebacker position. Now, the cause for concern, they must settle on a quarterback. From the looks of it, former Texas A&M quarterback Jamil Showers has the inside track for that job, and they've got to get a lot better defensively. Getting strong safety Richard Spencer back helps them out a lot, and they have only one home game in the final 6. We talked about this earlier, so I think they'll fight hard. I think they'll be competitive, but I don't think they'll get to 500 this season. Coming in 5th place, I have the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs, and the reason for optimism, running back Kenneth Dixon instantly gives La Tech hope for 2013. What a record-breaking year he had last year for the 6-foot, 215-pound sophomore, and look for new head coach Skip Holtz to lean on his services very early in the season. Defensively, there's a few bright spots to be excited about, mostly on the defensive line, with defensive end Inamik Kapali and defensive tackle Justin Ellis. The cause for concern, last year, La Tech won 9 games with an explosive offense, number 1 scoring offense in the nation last season, and they have to replace 9 starters on that side of the ball. There's also a concern about the defensive improvement. The linebackers and defensive backs would definitely have the bullseye on them. In order to get back to a bowl, La Tech has to improve in those areas. Coming in 4th place, I have the North Texas Mean Green, and the reason for optimism, the Mean Green will be in every ball game this season because they can control the clock on offense, a very good offensive line, and a talented group of running backs. And defensively, they are pretty solid. That back 7 is very impressive with linebacker Zach Orr and cornerback Zach Whitfield. Now, the cause for concern, the passing game is the biggest concern. Can quarterback Derek Thompson eliminate the mistakes, and can that receiving core take some of the pressure off of that running game? If they can find a healthy balance, this team could definitely find 6 or even 7 wins and get into a bowl game this season. We have the Tulane Green Wave, and the reason for optimism, head coach Curtis Johnson is an excellent recruiter, so the Green Wave fans will consistently see the talent on this roster increase. There's also a stable in the backfield now with Orleans Darkwa returning back to full strength. Ryan Grant is a legit NFL prospect, and they also are solid at the number 2 and number 3 wide receiving spot. Quarterback Nick Montana looks to be an ideal fit for the West Coast offense, and they're talented and youthful in the secondary with Doss, Batiste, and Monroe. Next, you have LSU's transferred defensive tackle Chris Davenport teaming up next to Kenny Welcome, and that's just going to strengthen that defensive line. Now, the cause for concern, we know the youth movement worked well for the secondary last year, but will it work for the offensive line? And this is their 2nd year in the defensive system. Can it yield better results as far as getting to the quarterback is concerned? I do believe the Green Wave will be a lot better this season, a lot more talent on this roster, and the schedule actually helps them get to a bowl game this year. Coming in 2nd place, I have the Tulsa Golden Hurricane, and the reason for optimism, despite some of the losses on the defensive side of the football, this is still a very talented team overall that has recruited very well. Tulsa boasts the best backfield and running game in Conference USA with Trey Watts and Jatarian Douglas. Both guys combined for over 2,000 yards rushing and both average over 6 yards a carry. Quarterback Cody Green is 100% healthy, and defensively, both linebacker Sean Jackson and free safety Marco Nelson are amongst the best in the country at their position. And they played a lot of guys last year, so that's why they have the depth despite the losses. Now, the cause for concern, they're breaking in a new center, a redshirt freshman, Dylan Foxworth. He's going to be vital for their running game. They run a lot of inside zone plays, and they're going to have to get that blocked up front. And a lot of sacks lost on defense as well. Plus, very young and inexperienced on the corners. That could be an issue, especially September 14th when they travel to Oklahoma. That'll be a good barometer of where they are defensively, but I still believe this is another team that will challenge for the Conference USA overall crown. And finally, we wrap up our 2013 Conference USA season preview with the Rice Owls finishing first in the West Division. And the reason for optimism, after being one of the youngest teams in the country, they're now one of the most experienced, and the Owls returned 19 of 22 starters from a team that got better each and every week and ended up playing and winning the Armed Forces Bowl. Now, the key ingredients are in place for these guys to get even better this year. They have a good quarterback in Mahargu. They have a veteran offensive line, talented backfield, excellent pass rush. They're also very solid in the secondary, and that schedule this year is very favorable. Now, the cause for concern, stopping the run is paramount to this year if they're going to have some success and avoid problems like they did last season. Also, outside of Jordan Taylor, they need a reliable number 2 and number 3 option to step up and play consistent. Can they handle success? Can they handle newfound expectations? I think they can. That's why I believe they'll win the West Division.